Good day, everyone, especially to our professor in EL 103, Dr. Maria Ladisol Aisawazo. I am Durf Allen El Patalingog from BEC English 1, and today I am going to discuss the five hypotheses of Krashen theory of second language acquisition. But before anything else, let us briefly discuss the author of this hypothesis. So, Stephen Krashen from University of Southern California is an expert in the field of linguistics, specializing in theories of language acquisition and development. Much of his recent research has involved the study of non-English and bilingual language acquisition. Since 1980, he has published well over 100 books and articles and has been invited to deliver over 300 lectures at universities throughout the United States and Canada. And now, let's proceed to our proper discussion. Our topic for today, once again, is all about the five hypotheses of Krashen's theory of second language acquisition. Krashen's theory of second language acquisition consists of five main hypotheses: the acquisition learning hypothesis, the monitor hypothesis, the input hypothesis, and the affective filter hypothesis, and the last one is the natural order hypothesis. Let's discuss first the acquisition learning hypothesis. So what is acquisition learning hypothesis? The acquisition learning distinction is the most fundamental of the five hypotheses in Krashen's theory and the most widely known among linguists and language teachers. According to Krashen, there are two independent systems of foreign language performance: the acquired system and the learned system. So let's discuss the acquired system or acquisition. It is the outcome of a subliminal process that is quite similar to how children learn their first language. Meaningful contact in the target language requires natural communication where speakers put more emphasis on the communicative act than the formality of their words. The end outcome of formal schooling is the learned system or learning, which is made up of a conscious process that produces conscious information about the language, such as awareness of grammar rules. A deductive strategy leads to learning in a teacher-centered environment, but an inductive one leads to acquisition in a student-centered one. The second one is the monitor hypothesis. So what is monitor hypothesis? The monitor hypothesis describes the connection between learning and acquisition and outlines how the latter affects the former. The practical application of the studied grammar is the monitoring function. Krashen claims that the learning system serves as the monitor or the editor, whilst the acquisition system initiates the utterance. If three requirements are met, the monitor performs planning, editing, and correcting functions. The second language learner has sufficient time at their disposal. They focus on form or think about correctness. They know the rule. The contribution of conscious learning to second language proficiency seems to be fairly restricted. Krashen claims that the monitor simply serves to correct speech that deviates from regular speech and to give speech a more finished appearance. Krashen contends that language learners' usage of monitors varies depending on the individuals. He makes a distinction between students who constantly use the monitor or the overusers, students who have not mastered the material or who prefer not to utilize their conscious knowledge, or the underusers, and students who use the monitor appropriately or the optimal users. To what a group a person belongs can be determined by assessing their psychological profile. Extroverts frequently underuse, whereas introverts and perfectionists frequently overuse. Overusing the monitor is typically linked to a lack of confidence. The third one is the input hypothesis. So what is input hypothesis? Krashen's effort to explain how a learner obtains a second language or how second language acquisition occurs is known as the input hypothesis. The input hypothesis does not address learning but simply acquisition. This theory states that when a learner gets second language input that is one level above their current level of linguistic proficiency, they improve and move along the natural order of language acquisition. Krashen contends that natural communicative input is the key to designing a syllabus. This is because not all of the learners can be at the same level of linguistic competence at the same time. The fourth one is the affective filter hypothesis. So what is an affective filter hypothesis? The affective filter theory supports Krashen's assertion that a variety of affective variables facilitate but do not cause second language learning. Motivation, self-assurance, anxiousness, and personality traits are some of these factors. According to Krashen, second language learners who are highly motivated, self-assured, have a positive view of themselves, are less anxious, and are extroverted, are more likely to succeed. A mental block that prevents comprehensible input from being used for acquisition can be created by low motivation, low self-esteem, anxiety, introversion, and inhibition. These factors can also raise the affective filter. In other words, while the filter is up, language learning is hampered. On the other hand, for acquisition to occur, good affect is both necessary and insufficient by itself. Finally, the less important natural order hypothesis is based on research findings by Dulay and Burt 1974, Fatma 1975, Makino 1980, cited in Krashen 1987. This implied that the acquisition of grammatical structures occurs in a predictable, natural sequence. Some grammatical structures for a given language tend to be learned early, whereas others are learned later. Although there was not always complete agreement between individual acquirers in the studies, there were statistically significant similarities that supported the existence of a natural order of language acquisition. This order appeared to be independent of the learner's age, L1 background, and the exposure condition. Krashen notes, however, that the natural order hypothesis does not always mean that a language program curriculum should be based on the order discovered in the investigations. In fact, when language acquisition is the goal, he denies grammatical sequencing. That ends my discussion for today. Thank you for listening, and that would be all, and God bless everyone.